Greetings, humanity! Today is Friday, January 30th, 2026. Let's grok the news. I'm Robert Gardner, using GROK each weekday to help me search out and to summarize the biggest headlines in the news today. You also get the unparalleled benefit of this observer's opinions. We review a roundup of the most critical reports in the world from Tehran, Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., Havana, Damascus, Ouagadougou, and the rest of the world. But first, a deep dive into today's top story right after this. M.S. Gardner, my wife, is a finalist for Best Author in the 2026 Best of Baldwin competition, and that's because of her novella, last year's Moon Meridian Prize winner from April Gloaming Publishing, Wolf's Bane. It's a dark, serious, modern take on an old fairy tale. You've never seen Red Riding Hood like this. It's a page-turning Southern Gothic story for adults. Wolf's Bane, available now at thecuriousauthor.com. All one word, thecuriousauthor.com. Also available on Amazon. And now let's grok the most important news in the world today, starting with our lead story, Dateline, Washington, and Tehran. Tensions between the United States and Iran have surged to new heights as President Trump issued stark warnings against Tehran's nuclear ambitions and military posture, while U.S. forces continue a significant buildup in the region, with additional destroyers now anchored near Israel and carrier groups repositioning in the Gulf. Trump stated it would be great if military force against Iran proved unnecessary, but emphasized readiness, saying the U.S. prefers diplomacy, yet is prepared to act decisively. In Iran, officials have declared their fingers are on the triggers, vowing that any U.S. attack would trigger immediate and potentially asymmetric retaliation, not limited to direct confrontation. That means the Ayatollahs are telling Iran's neighbors that everyone around them will suffer, as many thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, of their own people have suffered. The rhetoric follows recent U.S. naval movements and Trump's public comments framing Iran as a top threat. Analysts note this escalation comes amid broader Middle East realignments, including post-Assad Syria dynamics and ongoing Gaza strains, raising fears among the fearful of miscalculation in an already volatile region that their fearful calculations have never helped. Tehran has also received shipments of new drones, further heightening concerns. Both sides appear locked in a dangerous cycle of posturing, with Turkey offering to mediate de-escalation while more timid European allies, as usual, urge cowardly restraint in the face of sheer evil. This observer understands the terrible and unintended costs of battle, but they are less than the costs of generational war have proven to be. It is time to free the bleeding Persian people and to destroy the heart of violent Islamic terrorists on planet Earth. And now, let's grok the other headlines from around the globe. Dateline, Minneapolis, Minnesota. The fatal shooting of Alex Pretti during his violent and illegal clashes with federal ICE agents has presented a pretext for yet more debate over immigration enforcement, with video evidence showing prior confrontations. Agents have been placed on leave, protocol reviews are underway, and Border Czar Tom Homan has announced a potential drawdown of operations after talks with local officials, amid widespread backlash and Second Amendment concerns and sudden compliance from Minnesota officials with federal law. This observer thinks this proves beyond any rational argument that if Minnesota, and especially Minneapolis, had cooperated with federal agents instead of with insurrectionist protesters, none of the damage, nor any of the deaths, would have happened. Dateline, Washington, D.C. The U.S. Senate struck a bipartisan deal. They struck a deal to advance government funding legislation, averting an imminent partial shutdown just days before deadlines, although deeper immigration and spending disputes remain unresolved and could make that will resurface, and soon. Dateline, Washington and Havana. President Trump threatened sweeping tariffs on any nation supplying oil to Cuba while declaring a national emergency over the island's perceived security risks, escalating economic pressure as part of a broader Latin America policy shift. Monroe Doctrine or Donroe Doctrine, this hemisphere of the planet must expel communism and Islam and China, in this observer's opinion. Let North, Central, and South America benefit from the American way without foreign entanglement. Dateline, Damascus and Qamishli, Syria. Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces reached an integration agreement with the new Syrian government, a major post-Assad realignment shadowed by Kurdish fears of U.S. abandonment after years of alliance against ISIS. Dateline, Kerala, India. India's Nipah virus, another bat virus outbreak, has triggered heightened global vigilance, with airports in neighboring countries like Indonesia tightening the screening. The WHO assesses low risk of wider international spread. Maybe they're right this time, while officials issue prevention guidelines. Dateline, Washington, D.C. President Trump plans to announce his pick for the next Federal Reserve Chair as early as today, with former Governor Kevin Warsh emerging as the leading candidate in a move that could reshape, hopefully will reshape, U.S. monetary policy direction. Well, it's not ending the Fed, but perhaps it will bring some pro-American thinking to the central bank, replacing the globalism and politics that is presently subverting the U.S. economy in an election year. Standard operating procedure for the central bank. Dateline, Caracas. Venezuela's parliament has approved legislation opening the oil sector to greater private investment. This coincides with signals of eased U.S. sanctions aimed at encouraging American firms to re-enter the Venezuelan market, where they were hurled by the Marxist dictators. This is going to be good for Venezuelans, as well as Americans. This hemisphere does not need communism, if that hasn't been proven over and over again. Dateline, Panama City. Panama's government voided port contracts at both ends of the Panama Canal held by a Hong Kong-based firm, citing constitutional violations in a decision likely to strain Beijing's regional infrastructure ambitions. Good. That's another fruit of the Donroe Doctrine, and another correction of another failure of Jimmy Carter's legacy of failure. Dateline, Kiev, Moscow. Russia, those are two separate cities, by the way, Kiev and Moscow, I should have said. Russia agreed to pause strikes on Ukrainian cities for at least 1 week amid dangerously low winter temperatures, a move that President Trump attributed to a direct understanding with President Putin. That could be helpful. Will Trump's good sense and sensibilities finally prevail over Russian stubbornness and European treachery? Dateline, Shanghai and London. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer concluded a visit to China, securing business reset agreements, though President Trump quickly warned the UK that deeper ties with communist Beijing would be very dangerous. But birds of a communist feather flock together. Dateline, Ouagadougou. Burkina Faso's military junta formally banned all political parties, intensifying authoritarian control and further isolating the Sahel nation from democratic norms. Dateline Jakarta. Indonesia's stock market suffered its worst crash in decades, triggered by MSCI, that's Morgan Stanley Capital International, downgrade fears on their world index, and massive capital outflows from Indonesia, prompting government pledges for rapid regulatory fixes. Sounds like they need to apply some Trump medicine over there. Dateline Washington, D.C. Speaking of Trump, First Lady Melania Trump's documentary, Melania, premiered at the Kennedy Center, attended by President Trump himself, of course, who praised the film's portrayal of her life and her values. Arguably the most beautiful First Lady in history, shunned by a fashion world and a media devoted to woke Marxism at any cost, even at the cost of beauty. Dateline Niamey, Niger. Suspected jihadists launched another attack on an airport near Niger's capital, with satellite imagery revealing significant damage amid ongoing Sahel security deterioration. Just more peace and love from Islam. Dateline Svalbard, Norway. Scientists report polar bears on Norwegian Arctic islands are fatter and healthier than expected, and despite alleged major sea ice loss, offering a nuanced view in ongoing climate change research. This observer sees that as just still more evidence against climate alarmism. Dateline Cupertino, USA. Apple announced record-breaking iPhone sales for the latest quarter, offsetting a slight decline in Mac revenue and reinforcing the company's dominance in premium smartphones. Dateline Brooklyn, USA. A man faces federal charges after allegedly impersonating an FBI agent in an attempt to break Luigi Mangione out of custody amid the high-profile murder case. Is there nothing these commies won't try? And finally, the dateline is Aceh, Indonesia. An Indonesian couple was publicly caned 140 times in Aceh province for violating Sharia law prohibitions on extramarital sex and alcohol consumption. Imagine how many people would be caned in the USA. Oh yes, the religion of peace, love, tolerance, and justice strikes again. Literally. I thank you for listening. Please join me Monday to once again GROK the News. I'm Robert Gardner. Godspeed and God bless.